Hi, welcome back to Storytime, Cup of Joe. This series is going to continue onward. This is episode 6. I know that I mentioned it was going to be a 5-part series when I first started it, but I enjoy it, so I've continued to work on it. If you're not caught up yet, why aren't you caught up? There will be links to every previous episode in the description. If you enjoy it, like it, subscribe, click that little bitty gray bell to make sure you get notified. And new stories will be coming out almost every day. So we are going to go ahead and do part 6 of Cup of Joe. If you haven't caught yourself up, go catch yourself up. And alright, so let's get started with the story. As we stepped away from the coffee shop, cigarettes burning and chaos in the streets like a pair of fucking action movie heroes, Davis glanced over at me. Lowering some sunglasses onto his face like the goddamned, unliving, non-breathing cliché he was, with a subtle smile, he said only a few words in that thick, limey accent. Once you get used to it, being dead can be pretty fucking cool, mate. With that, he raised his cigarette to his lips, took a few steps, and faded into a gray fog. Pretty fucking dope, I must say. However, as the breeze somehow caught my ethereal robe, giving me a certain air of badassery, despite the jammies, I had a frightening revelation. Davis had just fucking disappeared. What in all of the hells? I suddenly didn't feel so cool and confident walking away from my crime scene. Oh, shit. He still had the cigarettes. Fuck. This just went from anxiety to living unliving nightmare. You know, you fucking get it by now. I looked around for a moment and then turned my gaze to the direction Davis had motioned. There wasn't a lot over there, but I didn't really have anything more specific to work with. Damn it, Davis. Damn it. I stumbled across the street, taking one last long draw from my cigarette before snuffing it out, when I noticed a pair of young women perched inside an art supply store. They had paint scattered everywhere, incense and cigarettes burning in a nearby ashtray. Both of them were dressed in bohemian 90s-style jeans and flowing artsy-fartsy tops. Strange how many living cliches you notice when you're no longer a living one yourself. They were decorated head to toe in scattered drips of paint, and they swayed to a rhythm I couldn't hear through the painted glass window. Hoff's Handicraft, the storefront window read. It stuck out into the sidewalk, rounding out the corner with a bright blue front door and colorful siding. A side door just barely visible in the alleyway next to the shop. I stepped closer to the door and reached out to open it. My hand, not surprisingly, ethereal as it is presently, slid right through the handle. Well, this would be pretty appropriate, wouldn't it? Can I even entertain or inspire myself? How the hell do I muse if I can't take in any goddamn art? The taller of the two women by now had picked up her phone and begun to scroll through some social media apps as she approached the door. She stopped in front of it, placed her hand on the handle, and she stood there, scrolling. And scrolling. And scrolling. God damn it. Just... fuck, lady. The door swung open and she smirked, still looking down at her phone. You coming in? She spoke, her voice soft and flowery, to no one. Well, no one was there anyways. She kicked the doorstop, clicked on a song, chuckled, and walked back to her seat as Wayward Son by Kansas began to play. We have another guest? The shorter woman asked as she looked back to her canvas and muddled her brush into some mixed color paints. Yeah, but he seems shy. The taller one responds, setting her phone down on a stool next to her as she hovered her free hand over a broad selection of brushes in a cut-off 2-liter bottle full of murky water. So, you're new to the whole muse thing, I imagine. Most of you just come on in, uninvited, the taller girl said with a smile on her face, as she reached a pale hand up to brush a colorful strand of hair out of her delicate but defined cheek line. So, let me get this straight. You know I'm here, clearly, but to what extent are you aware of me? I said, confused. I was used to being visible but not welcomed. I live in a big city. People see you, but really just to ensure that you never actually touch or accidentally interact. I can see, hear, smell sometimes, touch, etc. As far as I'm concerned, you're still very much alive, dear Muse. My brain is fried, but in just such a way, she said, softly trailing into a laugh. She was leaned in and concentrating deeply on her work. I thought to myself that this was all a little strange, but then again, what about today has been especially normal? I suppose it only makes sense I would stumble across these lunatics. Goddamned artists. Creatives in general. They always get under my skin with their hippy-dippy shit. Then again, I guess that makes me a hypocrite. However, I'm a hypocrite for good reason. I like to think a writer is well served with a certain degree of humbuggery in his life. So, do you know where I can get any smokes? I was cautious to speak up. We generally don't speak to each other in these parts. On top of that, I had become surprisingly accustomed to no longer existing, and it felt strange to address a living person with the legitimate expectation of a response. Nah, sorry. If you didn't die with it, you don't get to have it. But most muses smoke, so you should bump into another one soon enough. Davis is around here a lot. He likes the coffee shop across the street. Says it's got a lot of just his type of loser, whatever that means. The taller woman responded without looking up from her palette. I mean, seriously, lady, how much focus does it take to pick the same fucking blue you were just using? See? This is the shit I mean. They're always all methodical and careful. It's irritating. What's artistic about careful precision? I don't know. Not my place to make judgments. I've spent months on a 10-page draft and never even ended up publishing it. Who the fuck am I to speak, right? Hell, to anyone else, I literally can't speak. So, best if I don't push my limits just yet. So then, can I bum a smoke off of someone like you? Or is it just the fucking ghost cigarettes I can smoke? I said, fumbling in my pocket for the short I had saved. My figuring was that they were smoking in here. My cigarette might not even be real, so fuck it. I pursed it between my lips, dug out my lighter, and sparked the nasty refry of the nasty off-brand that the nasty cliché had given me. It wasn't really that nasty. I mean, I've had worse. I guess I'm just kind of a snob lately. You know, I can't say as that I know for sure, the taller woman replied. Her friend had remained reasonably intent on her painting through most of the talking. She didn't seem to notice really that I was there at all, but she sure enjoyed her painting. I didn't especially, but hey, I'm not an artist. I have an idea, though, she followed up, reaching for her pack and giving it a shake before tossing it at my feet. See if you can grab one. If not, I have a couple other ideas. I like that. The scientific approach. People spend a lot of time knowing everything and not enough time exploring and learning. I'm just as guilty as most, but it's refreshing to see curiosity thrive. Note to self, I guess. So I reached down to pick up the pack and, of course, with a taunting whoosh, right through it slid my fingers. Okay, well, that looks like a no on taking one. So, you said you had other ideas. Lay it on me, lady. This thing is burning fast, I said as I took another draw from my already half-smoked short. The filter had begun to collapse, as they do, so it was only a matter of time before it burnt out entirely. I smoke about a pack a day. This is a stressful day. This will not do. All right, so come here. I'll just see if I can hand you one, she said as she waved me over to an empty space just beside her. There weren't a lot of empty spaces around the small shop. Half-finished and for-sale paintings were scattered, leaned up against the shelves and walls. Knit projects and books were scattered on the shelves themselves, and varied miscellany was stocked between the seemingly random projects. It looked less like a shop and more like a studio, where they just make rent by selling extras and the occasional commission. I stepped carefully around while my ethereal robe simply drifted right through the nearby items on the floor. She giggled a bit as I carefully stepped into the open space she had gestured at a moment ago. I, of course, had still not noticed my inability to disturb my surroundings. That is, until I thought about what might be funny. Okay, so the open space thing, it's funny, all right, I said, relaxing and flopping into a seated position, my knees popping clean through piles of canvases on both sides. Now, That smoke? I said, reaching my hand out. Sure, just hand me that pack I tossed you, she said with a coy smirk drawing itself across her face. I stood, made my way, this time less carefully back across the floor. Once I arrived, hovering over the pack of cigarettes, I began to bend to pick them up. About halfway through, I got the joke. I looked over to her with a little sarcasm in my gaze. Very funny. I mean, you got me. Is it often you like to fuck with the newly dead? To which she replied with a soft chuckle and a smile. I mean, sometimes. What's the big deal? Not like it's going to kill you. As she finished her sentence with that same smile lingering across her dark lips, she turned back to her painting. I can't bum you smokes in any way. Sorry to say it, but you can't really interact with the physical world anymore. She dipped a brush, held between two slender fingers, into a mound of slowly drying acrylic paint. However, that doesn't mean you can't get the satisfaction, at least from time to time. You were a writer, am I right? She continued, not bothering to look back at me as I perused the paintings and craft projects. There were a series of what looked to be older paintings, clearly a blue phase, but then there was a series of abstracts. I don't normally go in for abstract paintings, but there was something raw and real in these. Wait, did she just ask if I was a writer? I don't recall having mentioned it. Yeah. Hammer, meet, nail. How'd you figure? I played a little nonchalant, trying to cover the creeping anxiety of being read out loud. My first love was a writer. You guys aren't anywhere as unique as you think. He was pretty special, but all writers have a certain something. You can see it if you know where to look. A new type of smile floated across her face for a moment, a deep, sentimental kind of smile. Her voice softened briefly and then went immediately back to the hidden monotone of earlier. Well, I call it monotone now, but this woman was eerily good at hiding herself. In that little moment of reality I could see, just for a second, what she was really thinking. Otherwise, however, I would have no clue. I create a lot of characters, and sometimes that gives me a lot of insight on people. I could tell she had a long and tragic story, but she was more than just a character. Cup of Joe, Part 6. Part 7 will be coming probably tomorrow because I managed to write the whole thing today because I got a keyboard for my phone. Anyways, if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, share it. I am a total whore on YouTube. I have to be because that's how YouTube works. I don't like it. It doesn't make me comfortable, but it doesn't make me so uncomfortable that I won't do it. You know, kind of like that middle ground. Anyways, thank you so much for your time. Thank you just for tuning in. Tune in next time, probably going to be tomorrow for Cup of Joe Part 7. And they called it a game. We'll be going with new episodes tonight as well. Thanks very much for your time. And until next time, I hope whatever time of day it is for you is amazing. Take care, guys.